my name is Zoe, and I'm the new directors of Girl Genius Magazine for YouTube Productions, and I'm here with Charlene Rocha. Is that right? Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, that's
Charlene
perfect.
Rocha. And
Yeah,
I'm just gonna hand it over to her to introduce herself. Just give me your age, like where you're from, and just a little
mhm,
fun fact about yourself.
perfect. All right, so my name is Charlene Rocha. I'm a human rights and environmental activist from Canada, and I'm 16 years old. And I do a lot of different types of activism, but it mostly involves environmental activism and activism around women in STEM.
Climate change activism. I'm really interested about that. Would you think we could start off with that?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So, a few years ago, actually, I went to my first Fridays for Future strike, and I found it absolutely amazing. I was really inspired by it, and I actually did a speech at my first strike. And it was really moving and inspirational. And once that speech kind of got uploaded and put on the internet, I got really great responses from it. And that sort of showed me that even as a young person, I had a voice and I could speak out, and my opinions and perspectives were being heard. So then, since then, I got in touch with the Fridays for Future organization, and I became a Fridays for Future Toronto climate strike organizer. So I help coordinate the Fridays for Future Toronto strikes with them. So what that means is basically what we do is we advertise, we try to get more people out to our strikes, and we also lobby for government action. We do a whole bunch of things. It's all about education and really just bringing out people to help promote this cause for climate action. So we do a whole bunch of things, but recently we've been doing amazing, really, really well. We've been getting thousands and thousands of people out to our strikes, and it's just been an amazing movement, and it's a great community to be a part of. So yeah, I started with Fridays for Future, and then from there I started doing talks about my environmental activism. I worked with the David Suzuki organization on the social media side, and I worked with Seven Generations and organizations like that. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's just been a really amazing movement, and it's connected me with so many amazing people. And I've just really been able to not only learn more about it, but really just become inspired by these amazing activists and all of the work that we're doing to help.
Okay. Wow, that sounds amazing. Wow, I'm like, it's so interesting because like, I hate to admit it, I'm not super educated about like climate change activism. I'm not really into
Yeah.
it, but like hearing you talk about it like makes me kind of want to get into it. Because
And
like
you
my community, yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I feel like a lot of people just don't know where to start. Like they have that passion and
Right.
that ambition, but they just don't know like how to get motivated and what they can do exactly. But that's especially one of the things that we're trying to get started. We're trying to encourage people. Like you don't have to do the full extreme. You don't have to go completely vegan. You can start off by doing like a few vegetarian meals, going thrifting, attending a strike, just overall involving yourself with like the news, the media, things that are happening. It doesn't have to be a drastic change. It can happen over a long period of time, and it can really just like even small actions help, and there's so much that you can do in your own community too.
Yeah. Okay. So in this current time where it is no longer a climate change, but more of a climate emergency, as a
Yeah.
lot of people are phrasing it, why do you believe that it's important for youths to get involved in the fight for a better future?
Definitely, yeah. I actually really, really enjoy like that phrase climate emergency because it really
Hmm.
just shows us that we're like in a state of panic. Like this is not something that we can just like laze around or just sit around and just like we really have to
Yeah.
take action and start thinking about it. But yeah, I think that's a great question. It's something that is impacting young people around the world, and it's something that's going to be involving our futures a lot more than older people. And while it's really important to have the support of a lot of adults, young people need to get involved because the second that we are the ones leading the country, leading the world, we're going to be head of companies, businesses. We're going to be controlling basically everything that's happening in the future. And that's when climate change is going to be at its worst. So we need to be educated now and we need to understand the dangers in our society right now so that when we become the people in power, we know the steps that we need to take. Because we know that right now, while the government is trying to, we're not doing
Right.
enough.
Yeah.
And we know that through educating people and really just getting youth involved and creating that community of understanding, when we become in power, we can actually take the steps to make change and improve this crisis.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Wow. You're putting the best way. That was amazing. Yeah.
Thank you so
I
much.
think like talking about like older people, I just kind of like I was like kind of reading around in the media, and I kind of realized how like there's such a distinctive kind of idea and like notion of climate emergency or climate change
Mhm.
between like older people and younger people. Why do you
Definitely,
think
yes.
there's that? Right? Like, why do you think there's that?
Well, that's a great question. Even me in my own community, one of the things that I tried to do to make change was I tried to like declare a climate emergency, which is basically this movement that's been taken over by countries, cities, towns, like a whole bunch of jurisdictions. But basically, what that means is your government is admitting that climate change is a crisis. So this is a story about something that I did in my own jurisdiction. I tried to get them to declare a climate emergency. And while I did have a lot of supporters and a lot of the city councilors that did support me, again, like I could see that very different view between what the young people knew about and what the older people knew about. Because we learn about climate change like in school. We know that it's a scientific
Right.
fact. We don't think that it's a yes or no, like maybe I believe in some of it. Like we know that this is proof,
Exactly.
this is true, it's happening. It's not a yes or no, it is a yes. And I feel like because we've grown up with that exposure to it and we know that this is our future and this is what we're going to have to deal with, we don't have that uncertainty and that what if factor. You know, we know that action
Right.
is the only thing that we can do and it's all that we have to do. With older people, I feel like they see other options and they don't think it's as big of an emergency as it really is because they just aren't impacted as much.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That was a great answer to that. Yeah. I mean, I think that older people definitely they aren't as impacted now that we're kind of like feeling the impact and everything. We definitely see it as kind of
Yeah.
emergency more than just like this kind of like theory. Kind of, it's
Yes,
no longer
exactly.
theory; it's actually happening. We're kind of actually seeing the effects in real life. So yeah,
Mhm.
um, what is your impression of the political situation in the United States and Canada around
Uh-huh.
climate change? Because you've seen how, at least in the
Yes.
United States, you've seen how. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. Yeah.
It's definitely a really big issue, but I feel like again with that thing that we talked about with older people and about how they aren't impacted as much, with the people who are in power, they do not see the impacts of climate change. Like in Canada for us, our indigenous people are the first people who are seeing the impacts of climate change. And it's called environmental racism. That's a very, very important term because people like we are very privileged to be living lives where we don't see the effects of climate change firsthand. But in a lot of the poorer places, they're doing the least amount of impact on climate change, yet they're getting the effects of it the most. So the issue is with these governments and with these people in power, they don't see it directly, so they don't think that it's an issue. And that's a
Yeah.
really big problem because they're not exposing themselves to all of these people who are getting damaged by it. Like with the Indigenous people in Canada, they're getting really bad water systems, they're getting horrible natural disasters, and they're experiencing so many bad things that we can't even imagine what it feels like. So I feel like it's really the responsible of leaders and us who are like the people who are voting for those leaders to make sure that they understand that people are suffering, people are dying, people are being impacted, and it's not just a one-way thing. It's going to impact all of us pretty soon, but it's just going to take time before people realize that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think that's something similar to what is happening in America right now, but it seems like the
It's
leader of
just
our
really
country is
frustrating.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really frustrating. Yeah, because just the things that he can say can really, especially on the internet, can really impact and kind of like that information is disseminated to like
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
right, and that's kind of scary if you think about it. That's
Yeah.
misinformation spread everywhere, and it's like how do you kind of also combat that? So I think it's
Mhm.
amazing how youths are kind of getting involved and kind of trying to combat
Exactly.
also
Yeah.
the misinformation, right? Yeah.
Because a lot of
Okay.
people just don't understand it.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's right. Okay, let's so sorry. What about three things that pop in your head when the word climate emergency is mentioned? I'm just
Oh.
gonna go a light, just for a light. Yeah, I hope this is a light question.
Three things. I would say scared, panic,
Scared.
and
Okay.
community. Those are probably the three.
Community.
Yeah.
Why? Okay, scared, panic, and community. Do you mind giving like just like a reason for each of those
Yes,
words? Very
So
true.
scared and panic, probably because emergency does show us that this is not something that we can take lightly. It is a very intense and a very serious situation, but also I would say community, because when we're all scared and we're all panicked, we hopefully feel that sense of hope and togetherness. And again, like it comes with that saying that climate change and climate action is an intersectional movement. It includes all of us. And honestly, like it creates such an amazing community of people who can just be brought together and fight for action. And I just think it's amazing that even though there's something so horrible going on in our world, we can really find the positives and just work together.
Yeah, yeah, I see that. I definitely see that. Okay, do you mind if we switch gears and go to
Yeah,
something else that you've done
definitely.
on like gender discrimination, which I
Yeah.
find so amazing.
Thank you.
So kind of like, do you mind like just introducing about like what activism you've done in gender discrimination?
Sure, yeah. So it started, I'd say, in elementary school for me because I was really, really inspired by an engineer and engineering in general because I found coding to be the coolest thing ever. And since elementary school, I've really just wanted to be a software engineer, and that's something that has really motivated me and pushed me. But then in high school, when I started taking computer courses, I realized that there are not only a really small amount of girls who take courses but actually take it on as a career, but there's also a lot of stereotypes and gender discrimination that goes around with that stuff. And honestly, personally, for me, while I've experienced things like racial discrimination, I had never experienced stereotyping towards my gender as much as I have in a computer class. And I didn't realize that it was as intense as it was. But that kind of motivated me to take action and help other girls realize that they're not alone. So I got involved with this organization called We Made It. And basically, what we did is we had the opportunity to interview engineers and we got the opportunity to ask them some questions about their own personal experiences. And then from then, I've gone to an elementary school and I was able to do a workshop with the young girls. And from there, I've also included it in a bunch of talks that I've done. And it's honestly, it's so inspirational to just know that there's other women who have the same experiences as you, but also are moved and have the same passions as you. It's just amazing to see that exposure and understand that you're not alone.
Yeah, wow, that sounds so cool. And you were talking about like going to like elementary schools and secondary schools to
Yeah.
talk about gender discrimination. What do you think, what is the thing that surprised you the most when you went to those schools, like about I suppose there were girls. Were there also
Yes.
like
Yeah.
young boys who went? So what do you think surprised you the most to like when you went
Yeah.
and talked about gender discrimination?
So I went to an elementary school and it was a group of young boys and girls, but they knew that I was coming there to talk about women in STEM. So when I started having this discussion with them, they were kind of confused because I think it was good that they were confused because they didn't see the issue. They were like, why aren't girls being engineers? What's the issue here? But once you show them the facts and the statistics, you realize that like they had such an innocent and amazing perspective with it, and it honestly just makes you hopeful. But I feel like they also needed to be exposed to that issue that there is gender discrimination and you might face this in the future, but here's what you can do to solve it, and here's why you should keep following your dreams and following your passions. So it was just amazing to see that like innocent perspective that they had, but also just to work with them and let them know that they need to have the confidence in themselves for the future and really just allow them to see that they have so many options to choose from and they can do whatever that they want.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the innocent perspective. So like I kind of went on this kind of like 6 week kind of like research program, and I
Yeah.
was doing it. And and it was kind of like it was happening in this college, and like there were also other programs. But then I kept on hearing from other programs, like wondering and asking why is there like a specific program put out for all girls
Yeah.
to just participate in like a STEM research thing, and I was kind of baffled, like how do you guys not like is it not known for like other people to like know that like there is a gender discrimination in the STEM workforce, especially like
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of innocent perspective also I didn't realize that it was also for like a lot of other people to have that. So maybe not for kids only. I kind of realized it was also in like a lot of other people to not realize that. But I guess
Absolutely.
people who are in STEM kind of like can see like Oh, there is, like, especially with the wage gap. And with the wage gap, like, what is your take on that?
Well, I definitely think it's completely heartbreaking that the wage gap is there. But when we look at a lot of the discrimination, but also a lot of the things that women face in their own households and the gender roles that are put on them, like it does make sense that these women are unable to take those steps because other people are putting those obstacles in front of them. It's a lot harder for a woman to get a job and get paid equally because of all of those obstacles and roadblocks in their way. And it's so sad that women aren't taken seriously, but again, it has to do with the bias that people have in their own minds because we all have our own like internal bias, but again, like are you going to act on it or are you going to end up treating everyone equally? And it's so sad to think about, but yeah, we do definitely need
Yeah.
to acknowledge that the wage gap is there and we need to make laws and do things to make sure that it's not happening anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. What do you think we can do, like, I think as individuals and as
Hmm.
females, to combat the inherent gender discrimination in like the workforce? Because I find like
Yeah.
other than the wage gap, like other than those things, there's just like these small kind of like, I don't know, these kind of like sometimes between like men and women, there is this kind of like inherent, like this, I don't know, there's this kind of dynamic that
Yeah,
is really
I know what you
weird
mean.
almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like what advice at least, or like something that you would like an insight on how
Hmm.
to combat that, how to kind of like at least I guess cope with that because it is not easy to kind of like avoid it or
Yeah, I
remove it
completely
from.
agree. Yeah. I'd say that the biggest advice or piece of advice that I can give is find allies because that is so, so important. If you're facing discrimination or if you have somebody who's bugging you or is giving you issues or your boss isn't listening to you or something like that, it's so important to find those people who can create that safe community where you can talk to them about what's going on, but also you can ask them for help and just have people who support you in your journey. So whether that's another girl who's going through the same thing or somebody who just understands and will allow you to tell them what you're going through. You need to make sure that you have allies and people that support you. And if not, and if you're in a really dangerous situation, it's really important that you tell someone and you're not just quiet about the situation that's happening. Because a lot of the times these issues just get passed by because people are afraid to say something. And that's why it's so important to have people who support you who will tell you their honest truth and what you need to do.
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, that was a great answer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think because I've heard that. I've kind of like also kind of heard from like more like kind of older mentors, and they've also kind of talked about that, and it is
Yeah.
even hard for them. So like really like I can't imagine what's in it for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's switch gears again. I'd like to kind of I like to kind of like touch base on like kind of youth leadership. So
Yeah.
kind of like who's your role model and why is that individual your role model?
Oh my gosh, I have so many role models. Let me think.
Just
That's
one.
mm, I would probably say that my role model for youth activism is either Malala. Yeah, I'd probably go with Malala because I feel like what
Yeah.
I found, what I yeah, I read her book and I found it so inspiring. But what I really, really loved about her was the fact that she was completely, she had zero hope when she started. And she started her activism just through writing. She didn't know if anybody was actually going to receive it. She didn't do it for any benefits other than just letting other people know that they're not alone and hoping that somebody would help her. And her entire movement and her entire journey was just so inspiring because she was able to take those steps to just really allow others to see that they had a community and they had supporters and people with her. And I just think that her cause for fighting for women to get education and fighting for girls to have equal rights was just so inspirational. And I love that whenever she talks about it, you can tell that it's something that she really genuinely cares about.
Yeah, definitely. What about Greta Thunberg? I think she's great.
Oh, I love her.
Greta
Yes.
Thunberg. I mean, that's
Yes,
the
she's
one name
the
that pops up.
yeah, she was the first person to ever strike school strike and
Yeah.
she's such an inspiration. Like, she started this amazing organization. She's gotten so many young people to get involved. She's gotten me to get involved. Like, the reason that I started my activism was because of Greta Thunberg, and because I saw what she was doing, and I was like, wow, I can do that too. She's just so inspirational. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a great person. Um, and I just kind of wanted to end this interview. I wish it was longer, but I would definitely wish it was longer. But I kind of just like want to end this with one last question, kind
Yeah.
of like the most cliche question you could think of. What advice do you have for young girls? Just like it could be on climate change, or it could be on gender discrimination, engineering, just anything. Anything you want to say?
Yes, my advice is to ask questions and get involved, because we all start from an area of not knowing anything, not knowing what we can do, how we can help. And the most important thing is that we ask questions from the people who are involved, and we ask them how we can start getting involved in an organization, volunteering at a home, helping out a neighbor, doing something simple like composting. It's really important that we ask questions, we research, we read books, we really just take that initiative to be the ones to start a movement. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there and really take the initiatives to start something.